Call to order for a Watertown City Council meeting for March 16th, 2026. Please rise while we have Watertown Fire Rescue Chief Don Rowland lead us in prayer.
We on? Yep. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with humble hearts, and we know, Lord, that you're here to serve and guide us and give us wisdom as a community, Lord. Lord, I ask that you look over our city council members tonight, our city manager, our mayor, as they make informed and thoughtful and fair decisions tonight for our community. Lord, I ask that you also take a time to praise our street department friends. They did a nice job this last weekend during the storm to keep our roads safe, clear, and passable for all of us. And Lord, I just ask you to watch over the rest of our city staff members as they do a wonderful job and do good works for the city of Watertown. Lord, as this Lent season is moving on, we just ask that your Son, Jesus Christ, who's in our heart, stays with us every day. In your name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Jurens?
Yeah.
Peters?
Here.
Shetty?
Here.
Allen?
Here.
Hoyer?
Here.
Pauline?
Here.
Mormon?
Here.
Thank you.
Quorum is established. I do have one change of business. We will be, just want to make sure we're pulling the right item. We are going to be pulling item H off of 8. So 8H off of the consent calendar. We're just going to remove it. We will take it up at next council meeting. So that's the only change for the agenda. But with that, I would, and I know that I'm one ahead on the conflict of interest, so I'll go back to that in just a second. Sorry about that. But with that one change, can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion made by Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilman Peters. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, the motion is City Manager. Sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Just for the benefit of the audience who doesn't have the agenda in front of them, item H, which has been removed from the consent agenda, is the approval of a 2-year lease renewal agreement for the Derby Downs Fairgrounds facility with K&H Rodeo Company.
And thank you. And that was just a couple questions came up today. We weren't able to contact all interested parties, so we just thought that it would be better to have a more thorough hearing at the next council meeting. So, motion made and seconded. All those in favor of accepting the agenda, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Now, conflict of interest. Councilman Hoyer.
Just going to be abstaining from 12E and 12F.
Any other conflict of interests to disclose? All right, thank you very much. We're on an open forum. If there is anyone who would like to address the council on something that is not on tonight's agenda, now is your time to do so. Make sure the red light is on.
Green light go. I'm Tyler with County Fair Foods, Tyler Thuringer. I'm here to speak about the continued closure of 2nd Street Northeast following the demolition of the old City Hall. The street was originally closed the week of December 22nd to allow the demolition to take place. That demolition was completed in January, yet 2nd Street remains closed. Over the past several weeks, we have continued to hear timelines such as a few more weeks or a couple more weeks while the city waits for final drawings. However, there is no activity on the site for nearly 2 months. Because of that, I'm asking the council to consider reopening 2nd Street Northeast until construction activity actually begins. Specifically, I'm asking that the barricades be removed and the street reopened within a week from today, hopefully. We've already been 2 months. I think we're all well aware of what that can do, and I'll state a few of them here. First, pedestrians are crossing in areas they normally wouldn't in order to navigate around barricades. This creates unsafe crossing situations near crosswalks and traffic. Second, customers walking in and out of nearby businesses, including County Fair, are now navigating a more congested and confusing traffic pattern. Third, drivers entering and exiting the County Fair parking lot are forced to manage increased traffic, pedestrians, and vehicles trying to reroute around the closure. Additionally, 2 of the entrances and exits to the County Fair lot are effectively blocked by the closure, which disrupts the flow and reduces the safe access for customers. When we receive deliveries and orders, our access becomes even more restricted, often leaving us with only one usable entrance or exit for both customer traffic and delivery vehicles. The alley traffic has also increased significantly as drivers attempt to bypass the closure. It makes for more difficult and unsafe for semis, UPS, FedEx, and other vendors to safely stop and unload product. I do believe I emailed you guys the list of some signatures that I obtained from downtown members. Those also included some of the vendors that do stop at our store. UPS and FedEx specifically do use alleyways a lot because it's safer for them and their vehicles. And another big reason because their job is also relying on that street and that alley. Second Street is also one of the primary routes into downtown Watertown. While there are other ways to get downtown, Second Street is arguably the first major artery from the north used when traveling westbound on First Avenue. Another concern is that County Fair parking lot is private property, yet it is now being used as a pass-through route for downtown traffic because the street is closed. This increases traffic through the lot, creates additional safety concerns for customers, pedestrians, and causes unnecessary wear and tear on our property. Finally, downtown businesses depend heavily on traffic flow and ease of access. When major streets remain closed for long periods of time without active work taking place, it inevitably affects business. While it can be difficult to measure the exact revenue impact, the disruption is real for not only me and the remainder of the downtown businesses. I would invite any council member to visit our lot in the morning when we have a delivery at our dock to see how traffic flow is affected. I would also encourage you to visit around 5 p.m. when traffic is at its busiest for us and both entrances funnel into the same exit and entrance points. It quickly becomes clear how the closure creates congestion and safety concerns. This issue, first and foremost, about safety for pedestrians, drivers, and customers visiting downtown and County Fair. Reopening the Second Street until construction actually begins would help restore normal traffic flow and reduce many of these risks. I respectfully ask the council to take action and reopen Second Street Northeast within a week until active construction begins. If it has to be closed again later, that is fine. But until then, it only continues to create unnecessary safety risks and hardships for the business and people who rely on this area every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address the council?
Hi, good evening. My name is Dave Idy, and I'm the manager of Coddington Clark Electric, a member-owned electric cooperative, and I live in Watertown. Tonight on the agenda is the second reading for the Harmony Hill Annexation Second Edition. This annexation is in Coddington Clark Electric Service Territory. I would respectfully ask that Coddington Clark Electric retain our service territory in this annexed area instead of it going to Watertown Municipal. When this happens, again, I mentioned this a couple months ago, it's a government taking of private business. That's what's going on. And this has happened multiple times, many times, since I've been the manager at Coddington Clark Electric. Another thing is when annexations occur, and we're not against annexations at all. When they occur, we don't receive notice, and we ask that we receive notice. We spend millions of dollars on infrastructure every year installing new power lines, and if there's area that's eventually going to be taken away from us, we don't want to spend the money on it. But then there's another issue with that, though. That's unfair to the people that live by it. So we're not spending money on infrastructure that's serving them. It's a waste of members' money, and that's a concern. And I'm coming before the council because you're the only elected officials, again, that I can talk to about this. The Municipal Utilities Board is appointed. And that's a problem. That's not good governance. We all know that. They should be elected. So I leave with 3 asks tonight. 1, notice of annexation. We should get notice. 2, addressing the election process for the Watertown Municipal Utilities Board. And 3, retaining that service territory of the Harmony Hill Annexation, 2nd edition. Back in January, I asked to continue to serve the Berger annexation and about the election process at Watertown Municipal Utilities. And no one got back to me on either one of those issues, one way or another, if we were going to get to keep serving that or what was going to happen there. So I would appreciate a response. It doesn't have to be now, but a response to this, all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Idy. I will tell you, if you want to, you can stick around when item 12C is up, and there is a public forum, there is a public meeting, public hearing during that item, so if you want to bring up these specific questions regarding Harmony Hill 2nd Edition, you can do so at that time, and possibly get an answer at that time to at least some of them. The point about the election is not on tonight's agenda, so that is very appropriate for the open forum. But if you wanted to stick around, you can sure testify at the public hearing on that item specifically. Okay. Otherwise, I wrote down your questions and we can get those looked at. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? All right, I will close public hearing or open forum. And we will go into item 9A, which is a yearly update presentation from the First District Association of Local Governments. Their executive director, Todd Kays, he asked me to refer to him as the Grand Poobah, but I think executive director will work for now. But he's a good friend of the council. Todd,
Thank you.
Take it away.
IT, could you put the PowerPoint presentation up for the public to see, please? Thank you very much. Well, I get to see many of you on an individual basis throughout the year, but generally it's only one time a year that I get out and address the city council about activities at the First District. And I try to use this as an opportunity also to educate the public on who we are as an organization and what it is that we do for this region. So some of you have heard this before over the 17, 18 years that I've been coming to the city council doing this, but the First District is one of 6 regional planning and development districts. We are located in the northeast corner of the state. We have sister offices in Aberdeen, Pierre, Rapid City, Sioux Falls, and Yankton. Next slide, please. We are not government, but we're creatures of government. The boundaries of the First District were set out by Governor Frank Farrar in 1971. And shortly after those boundaries being set, at that time, 10 counties of the First District got together under what's called a joint powers agreement and put in place the First District and who we are and what our tasks are and what we are supposed to be doing. And our mission in 1971 is very consistent to what it is today. We are still out here trying to improve the quality of life and economic and community development opportunities for the membership that we have. In 2000, Roberts County became a member of the planning district. They left NECOG and joined us. So we have 11 counties, 76 municipalities here in northeast South Dakota. Next slide, please. As far as how we are governed, we have a 35-member board, which is 3 representatives from every county that we serve, plus the chairman of the Flandreau-Santee Sioux and the Sisseton-Wampanoag tribes. Currently on our board, County Commissioner Myron Johnson is the county rep, Dan Schutte is the municipal representative, Michelle Kakachek, she's going to yell at me for saying that wrong again, is our at-large member. Myron Johnson is currently on our executive board. Next slide. As far as what the governing body does, I should back up for just a second, is they meet twice a year. They establish our budget and approve our budget. They approve our work plan. They hire the executive director on an annual basis, and they're used as a sounding board just to talk about various community and economic development opportunities and projects that are going on throughout the region. As far as how we are funded, we basically have four streams of funding. All counties and all municipalities with at least 100 individuals pay dues into our organization. And we use those dues as a way to leverage other state and federal grant opportunities. But the lion's share of how we are funded comes in fee-for-service work. And we do different sorts of activities at no cost to our members, and some things we do charge a fee. But those fees are much less than you would find if you were dealing with the private sector, and that's just through the power of the collective. The governing body sets our due schedule on a 10-year float, and this happens shortly after the census, and our dues are based on a population basis throughout the district. Next slide, please. As far as who works at the district, currently we have 9 employees with about a little over 140 years of work experience. There's a few of us at the top of that list are getting a little long in the tooth, and we'll be looking at some transitioning happening in the next few years, of course. We do have several employees that used to work for the city of Watertown, and we are very happy that we have them working for us. They bring a lot of expertise, and they're quality individuals, and you'll recognize some of their names up there on the board. I will be 33 years old here in May, and God to wish. Anyhow, but these individuals on this list do a wide variety of services. Next slide, please. For our membership, we're kind of known for doing a lot of work in finance and application packaging, whether those be for grant or loan programs that promote community and economic development. If we're fortunate enough to write a grant or write a loan for one of our members, and we do that at no cost, we then assist in the project administration, because all that, quote, free money has a lot of strings to it, and we have expertise in just how to manage the minefield of federal and state financing. Planning and research. Planning is in the title of who we are as an organization. It's what I've spent most of my professional career doing, working in everything from nuisance policy, strategic planning, comprehensive land use planning, emergency planning. It's got the word book report or study in it. We've probably done one of those at our office. Also work a lot in human resource development as well. That's kind of one of my nerdy things I like to do on the side. As far as some of our technical and financial specialties that we have at the office, we do work in tax increment financing. GIS is very important. We have 4 individuals that work in GIS. We probably have the most seasoned GIS staff outside of Sioux Falls in the state of South Dakota. It's something that we do from all of our planning activities to grant writing activities. We manage a variety of local, regional, and statewide GIS databases. We also have revolving loan funds within our office. We have about $4 million that we provide, working in concert with local lenders to promote new business growth and expansion of big businesses here within our 11 counties. And then a lot of things that I do mostly is I'm out there supporting and promoting the various different programs that our memberships have access to. Next slide, please. There's a lot of different ways we try to show return on investment for our membership, and the basic easiest one is just the metric that I use is to show what kind of dollars have come into our region in the form of state and federal grant opportunities for our membership. Last year, as it was about $27 million in loans and grants came into our area. 21 million of that was just in solely grants. And so if you take the total grant dollars that came into our area divided by the dues that were paid by our membership, it's about a $63 return on investment. Since I've been the director late in 2008, we've been able to assist our membership obtaining about $325 million worth of income and financing to do a variety of community and economic development projects. So that's about a $70 return on investment. When we take that a local look here at Cottington County, you can see last year, next slide please, that that was about $7 million in grants and loans came into Cottington County. A little over 6.5 of that was in grant dollars. So about $105 return on every dollar's worth of dues. And that's been $41 million into Cottington County communities and the county over the last, since I've been the director, last 16, 17 years, with an average return of about $46.5 per dues. And then here in Watertown, next slide please. Last year we had a good year. assisted our partners with the Watertown Development Company and the City of Watertown in obtaining two large grants, a $2.5 million Economic Development Administration and a $500,000 LIP grant for the Calvin Industrial Park. So that was a $3 million for the city that those projects are going to be moving forward on. And that was like $250 return on every dollar's worth of investment. We can say we had our high water year was in 2022. And that had to do with all of the COVID funding that was being made available across the nation. So on the average, we've been averaging about $157 return on investment for the city of Watertown over the time that I've been the director here, and about $26.5 million in different grants. So those are just some of the highlights of as far as what we do as an organization and some of the returns. If you could be IT staff, open up the other document, and it's about the 4th page. And just to highlight a few projects that we've been working on here with the county and the city and the other municipalities in Cottington County over the past year. We do a lot of work for the county in 911, database management, and maintaining their web pages. Luke Muller in our office is the Cottington County zoning officer. We did the highway bridge plan for the county last year, and also assisted them with a commodity flow study that received $10,000 that identified and counted the various types of hazardous materials being transported through the county. Then doing some work in Henry and South Shore on some water and sewer projects there. In the city of Watertown, over the course of the last year, there's a lot of projects being done with the Watertown Municipal Utilities as well as the city on various water and sewer projects. We take care of a lot of the strings that are attached to those grant and loan funds there. Again, I mentioned that working with the city in the grant applications for the Calvin Park expansion, we'll be assisting and facilitating the finance strings with that. And so you can just kind of see we've had a really wonderful working relationship. I mean, Watertown is home, go class of '82, and been here for a long period of time, and I'll be here for a little while longer. But any questions or comments, be more than glad to take anything at this point in time.
And I'll ask if council does have any questions or comments. Councilman Shetty.
Well, thank you, Mr. Case, for your presentation. And being on that board, it's been an honor the last 2 years. Just want to mention that seeing the teamwork, as you mentioned, the years of service there, it's always nice to have an organization in our region that's the teamwork of not just the number of years of employment, but working together and understanding each other. It's encouraging to see, and so I appreciate your leadership in that.
Thank you very much. Well, again, we look forward to another successful year as the association, as well working with the city of Watertown, and look forward. And as always, most of you call me when you have a question, and so phone's always open. Always stop by for coffee. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Move on to item 12A, an approval of a resolution of necessity for sidewalk improvements along Fifth Avenue North with the 2026 Neighborhood Street Reconstruction Project number 2503. City Engineer Justin Peterson, tell us more.
Thank you, Mayor. The resolution of necessity is the first step for sidewalk to be assessed. The resolution of necessity, if it's passed, and at the end of the project, there'd be a second step where there's a resolution of assessment, and that's where the landowners would have an opportunity to either pay up front or put it on the tax rolls. So this is a resolution of necessity for the sidewalk along Fifth Avenue. The sidewalk that would be assessed would be sidewalk that doesn't meet ADA requirements or it doesn't exist. This could be sidewalk that's broken, that's pushing up. The cross slope is greater than 2%. There's structural heaving, joint displacement, or any other safety factor. Notices were sent to the landowners with an estimate of, and the estimate includes the city's sidewalk reimbursement portion already included in that. So it's totals up to be $9.86 per linear foot. If I may, we also had some calls about trees, and I'd like to address that. There are several trees, over 100 trees being removed. Half of them are ash trees, cotton trees, or evergreen trees. So they'd be removed as part of this project. And then we're planning on replanting the 103 trees kind of evenly spaced along the route. So at the end of the project, there will be about the same number of trees as there is now. So I guess with that, I'll stand by for any questions.
And City Engineer Peterson, what size will the trees be? I think the reference was they're about 5 feet tall, 2 inches in, is it circumference?
Yeah.
So, these aren't saplings. I just wanted to make that clear. So, okay. City Manager Steger, anything to add?
Nothing to add at this time.
Okay. I will open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? Just please come forward and introduce yourself and where you live if you represent anyone other than yourself. But
I'm Shane and Shelley Ronke. We live on 502 North Broadway, which is right on the corner of Fifth Avenue where that's going to start. Back when the ash beetle came, there was no discussion about this project removing trees. And so we went ahead, we wanted to save our trees. We went ahead and paid
We had them
$300 a tree.
tested by an arborist. They didn't have any. We had them tested, treated. Now they're marked for
Removal. and then
removal. We have replaced the sidewalks on both Fifth Avenue and Broadway sides. So that has all brand new sidewalks. Our concern was the trees that we've already paid to have treated and they're tagged.
Curious as to why they
Saving.
have to be removed.
That was our concern. Because we didn't know, otherwise we wouldn't have paid to have them treated if they were going to be removed anyway.
And we kind of think that should have been a discussion before that when we had our meeting at the Extension Center. If you want to keep them, treat them. We did.
So we did.
And we did replace our sidewalks, so we're curious as to why the tree has to be.
thank you. What did you say your address was again?
502.
502, and I'm saying that because we might be able to look it up to see the
It's-
trees in question.
Yes, it's right on the corner, there's two trees on Fifth Avenue. We removed two at the end towards the alley because of the construction, so those two are removed. But the other two that sit right on Fifth Avenue, we treated those, and the two that sit in front of the house on Broadway, those were,
Or trees are trees.
yeah.
And I want to
We
say,
really don't want to lose them if we don't have to, and like I said, the sidewalks have already been done.
I will get to you, I'll make sure your question gets answered, but I have to continue with the public
Yep,
hearing.
That's fine.
thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to testify on this item? Could you come forward, just?
The other thing, I've taken down all these, why are we down the, I have, they're all coming down, well, they're not, treated mine. Plus I have other, but they're beautiful. In my house, trees, love my, and gets taken down, and gets put in. And the city consider saving on every on Fifth Avenue. There's not one that is everyone is back for what is it because they're not they're widening Fifth Avenue. Those trees are far enough on the sidewalk. Not
Right, thank you. And you said you lived on the corner of? Maple and Fifth, okay. Would anyone else like to testify on this item?
I know I talked to Stagger and
Would you please
Peters.
introduce yourself?
I'm Kaylee Steiner. We just bought a house.
Excuse me, what was the name?
Kaylee Steiner.
Kaylee.
We just bought the house at 318 on Fifth Avenue. And we came home on Friday to 5 of our trees being marked. 3 of them, well, I guess one's on the corner. 2 of them are on 4th and 3 of them are on 5th. And we weren't told of anything being taken down or put in or anything. So I contacted City Hall and they said that our street wasn't being widened, so there should be no reason for the trees to come down. And then they said the sidewalk, which we weren't informed about the sidewalk either. Definitely 3 of them shouldn't be in the way of a sidewalk, especially if they're shrinking our portion of the road. But I don't want our trees taken down and I don't want to pay for a sidewalk that we don't want in. So I'm not sure if that's up for discussion, if we get to choose the sidewalk or not, but I want the trees reevaluated.
Do you happen to know if those trees are ashes or not?
There's 2 pine trees, a really old maple tree, and then I think the other 2 are aspen. I'm not sure. The other 2.
You said aspen and maple and?
Pine trees.
And pine. Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify? Yeah, if it's
Just a
on this
quick question.
topic, yeah.
You said you're replacing the trees, Zach Thompson. I'm just curious what kinds, particularly with cottonwoods. I mean, I've had them in my family's property before, but they're beautiful, but they tend to rot at some point. If we're not putting any of those in, it would be probably better for just curious.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify on this item? Okay, I will close public hearing, open it up for council action. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution? Motion made by Councilman Shetty. Seconded by Councilman Jurens. Thank you very much. Let's open it up for some questions. I will try to make sure that I got all of the questions listed from the people who came forward. I will go in reverse order. Could someone tell me what new trees will be planted? City Engineer Peterson. What kind of trees will be planted to
There's
replace
3
those?
different types of maples. There's a spring snow, there's a linden, and there's a red oak. So they're kind of divided up among.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the homeowner, the property owner, does have the opportunity to choose what kind of tree they want, correct?
If they reach out before they're ordered, yeah,
Okay.
there's an opportunity.
I'm glad I got that on. So if you do own property, anyone who even is not here, if you want to specify what kind of tree you want, you have that opportunity and the city will put it in. Okay. Yeah, excuse me. And I can get back to you, Ms. Owens. I will go to Ms. Steiner's question. So first, and I will try to get everyone done, but I do know that some of the trees that you had listed, I think might have their own reason for being removed, the aspen and pine. But I am not an arborist, so someone who can better explain what the issue might be with those trees.
I might ask Park and Rec Director Rodick to comment on the coniferous trees in the public right-of-way.
Evening, Council, Mayor. As far as I'm concerned, I don't know that there's an issue with the aspen tree. It was the conifers. Typically, they're not recommended in any community to put in the boulevards. It tends to create sightline issues. The spread of those can impact sidewalks. Just the way those trees grow, instead of growing up, kind of, down from the bottom. So it's primarily, a sightline issue with coniferous trees in a right-of-way.
Okay, so thank you very much, Director Rodick. And that's just with the coniferous. There was several questions that Ms. Steiner had in regard to the sidewalk. That was one question. I'm going to say let's focus on trees for right now because most of the question were on trees, and then we'll go back to the sidewalk issue. Okay? Is that okay, Council? So Ms. Steiner asked about why she had to put in the sidewalk. We will get to that after we discuss the tree issue. There was a question about if Fifth Avenue is not being widened, then why do her trees need to be removed? Because they would not present a problem with the sidewalk. And if the road is not being widened, then it would likely not cause a problem with the road either. Engineer Peterson?
There you go. So, Ms. Steiner is one of the properties that doesn't have sidewalk, so where the sidewalk is placed, there's trees, looks like it's lining up right in the middle of where the sidewalk would be.
Okay. And I would ask Ms. Steiner, does that sound right? Could you come up to the microphone, please? Excuse me? Yeah, could we find a map too to pull up? If only we had someone like the first district here with GIS services. And while we pull up the map, you can stand at ease for right now.
Just a quick question.
Yep, Councilman.
I think it might be easier, Justin, how many feet is the boulevard? And we can start to understand what that is from the street.
But you want me to comment, Justin?
City Manager
It's
Steger.
going to be various widths. The existing right-of-way is between 66 and 80 feet, with a street that will be 36 feet in the new design. Today, the street actually has various widths going up to 39 feet in some areas. So it's a mixed answer. What I will say, Ms. Steiner's property was looked at by engineering staff this afternoon, and in that place, it is about a 16-foot right-of-way from back of curb to where the sidewalk is, and the trees would interfere with that 16 feet.
Okay. And then I was also told that our portion of the street was going to be narrowed. Would that still affect trees are in?
I believe it would.
Okay.
All right, please do work on that map. I suspect we're going to need it for some of the other discussion as well. Right, did I get to all of your questions? It doesn't mean that we're done. It just means I wanted to
For the
make
trees,
sure.
yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I got your questions asked. So we had questions from Shane and Shelley Ronke and Brenda Owens regarding the trees that they had treated and also a little bit with the widening, but I'd like to address the treated trees, yes, is a good question. Who do I go to on this one? City Manager Steger.
I will try to take it. We have advised people that trees they choose to keep, that they can treat. I believe last fall, people were made aware of which properties would have trees removed. I know that there was a meeting held here at City Hall to review with most of the property owners. Everybody did receive a certified letter. I'd have to ask what time the trees were treated. It may have been before the notifications went out, but certainly it wouldn't be the intent of the city to advise people to treat trees that we knew were going to be coming out.
Thank you. Would either Ms. Owens or either Ronke be able to answer the date as far as, I'd be curious to know, I know the meeting that you're referring to with the extension office as far as like telling landowners that they can, or homeowners that they can treat their trees. I can't remember. Can anyone help me with the dates of those things? Dates of that timeline?
It was before Labor Day, because that was the defining time. They said treat them before Labor Day. It's about the middle. It was in hibernation.
Would you check if that green light is on?
It is.
It is.
Okay, and
I'm
so,
sorry.
It was before Labor Day because they said that's when it would be at it. So we had it about a week after we had Chris York come and Aero Tree Service come and tested all the trees and inject them and tag them all.
I want to say August. is
Okay.
Probably.
And we
that-
never got a certified letter that any of our trees can be removed.
we were
That's
unaware
why
of
we
that.
treated them, otherwise we wouldn't have gone to the expense of treating them if we knew they were gonna be removed.
okay. I got a text from someone saying that they can't hear people at the microphone, at the
yeah.
podium, so.
Sorry.
Anyway,
Sorry.
no, it's not your fault, just,
There we go.
if you come back forward, just lean a little bit into
Sure.
the microphone, but, City Manager Stager.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask the Ronkies a quick question, which I think would be relevant here in a minute or two. Your new sidewalk that you placed, do you know how wide that sidewalk is?
5 foot.
It is
It is
the
5
60
feet.
inches?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
We did on Broadway.
You know, we put that in 2 years ago.
And can I ask a question specific to your property as well?
Sure.
Is their property one that has to redo the sidewalk? Because it's already conforming, according to all,
We
okay,
did it because there was parts of it on the Broadway side that were buckled up and
Yeah.
it was a tripping hazard. And then we did construction on the Fifth Avenue side by adding a garage. So there were certain parts of that sidewalk too that could have been in question. So when we removed those trees, we just put in all new sidewalk to the alley.
Yeah.
Just so there was no
okay.
tripping
So
hazards.
thank you for doing that, but in this case, your sidewalk will remain as is.
Okay.
We're not
Okay.
touching it, we're not doing anything different with that. Am I correct on that? I want to make sure. Okay, we will get an answer to you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our house.
Specific to the Ronkies. Does anyone have a question specific to the Ronkies? Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. So the question is actually for staff on this. With Ms. Steiner, and their property, the trees were in the right of way, if you will, for the sidewalk. So the trees that they treated, if they're not in the right of way, do they need to be removed? I mean, if they're not in the way of a sidewalk, it sounds like, do they need to be removed, I guess? Can they be
Yeah,
stayed?
they weren't. They were
That's my
sidewalk.
question, I guess, for staff or whoever on that.
Engineer Peterson or City Manager Staker. I will say, I drove that road twice today, and it's only boulevard trees that are marked. So if they're inside that, then they're not marked, then they're safe. Yeah, go ahead, Councilman Peters.
Just a quick piggyback onto that. So is it true that if they treated their trees, that they don't have to be removed? I'm confused on that, because I think what I'm hearing is they treated them, but they were still automatically gonna be removed. Since they treated them, do they have to be removed?
I want to make sure that the question is, you're wondering, do they have to be removed for this road or for the Emerald Ash borer? Okay, so, because they're two different issues. So as I understand it, if you treat your tree for the Emerald Ash borer, you can keep your ash on the boulevard. I believe so. Am I?
That's what we were told.
Okay, so I'm getting a nod from Director Rodick. So just for anyone, this is a good lesson out there for anyone. If you own an ash tree and you want to keep it, if you want to treat it, you have that ability. And even if it's on the boulevard, we would keep it. Is that correct?
Except for the construction
Except,
project.
but yeah, so in general, but for this, for your property specifically, and Mrs. Owens as well, if it impacts the road, and we will get to that in just a second. I do have one other question on the timeline. I don't know the exact timeline, but I do remember this meeting that the homeowners reference, and it would be late August, early September. What day did the city send out the letter?
I'll have to defer to City Engineer Peterson on the date of the letter. I will add this, though. There was an in-person meeting with at least half of the property owners in November. And just, Trent, if you could take my screen, I do have a map up.
Yes. The letters for this project, for that meeting that City Manager Allen mentioned was the beginning of November is when those were sent out. The meeting was November 18th, if I remember right.
But I just want to make that clear that the homeowners received notice about the trees being removed after they had heard that they could keep the trees if they treated them. Just want to make that, so, okay.
And those two trees that are shown right there by the alley, those have been removed because we had an extension.
Councilman Shetty?
So I guess just for my question and the staff again, is there a reason, it's not for the sidewalk reasons, I don't believe. Is there for road construction purposes that they have to be removed? I guess I haven't gotten a clear answer on that yet.
I'd like to look into this one. It appears that they may not be. It might have been just because they're ash trees, but I want to confirm that with the designer.
Just to follow that up, because yeah, it's possible that because it's ash trees, we marked it, maybe we didn't realize, I'm not sure if we have a record in City Hall here as far as which trees are being treated or not, so maybe it just was miscommunication, so it's possible.
And that might very well be, but the tags are about a foot above the X.
Right, the X is right, and there's a bright blue tag right above the X. So on both the trees.
Either way.
So
So
if they had just looked like this, they would have seen the tag, the bright blue tag.
guess our question is if they have to be removed, why? And I believe Brenda probably has the same.
And I think, I mean, Ms. Steiner was slightly different with a couple different trees, but still, I think everyone on council wants to know exactly why these trees have been marked as well. City engineer.
Just kind of follow up. This is one I will check up on, and if we don't have your phone number, if you could give us the phone number, we'll follow up on it.
Okay.
Councilman Allen.
This is really kind of a sidewalk question, I guess, and that is, I'm hearing that the road may be of different widths. It currently is of different widths, so I assume we're going to standardize the width of the road through the length of Fifth Avenue. Does that change anything about the sidewalks? We're talking about a 5-foot sidewalk. Is that going to be uniform, the length of both sides of Fifth Avenue? Or will that vary depending on the road width? I don't know who can answer that.
City engineer Peterson.
The road width is going to be 36-foot standard throughout. The sidewalk is placed typically on the about 4 inches off the property line, so it's going to be pretty consistent sidewalk as well. Yep.
Any other questions, City Manager Staker?
The one change is a 60-inch width of sidewalk, right? And looking at this, Mr. Ronke said his sidewalk was 5 feet or 60 inches. And it looks like the Owens sidewalk is the same width, just looking at the picture. This is a 31-foot width of roadway approximately here. City engineer, is that driving the need to remove the trees, or do you need to look at it further?
That could explain it. I'd still like to look into it a little bit further, but that could be the reason why, yes.
I will ask a question that will probably just complicate matters, but in our meeting this morning, talking about the agenda items, not every sidewalk has to be replaced, and therefore not every sidewalk will be uniform in width. Is that correct?
Not all the sidewalks will be assessed. There's some sidewalk that's being replaced, but if it meets ADA, let me rephrase that. In some cases, there are patchwork, so some might meet it, some might not. In those cases, we're replacing all the sidewalk, but we're only assessing the bad sidewalk, if that makes sense.
Bad or non-conforming?
Correct, yep.
Councilman Hoyer.
I would just lead with, I know that we have uniform road standards that we do try to uphold in the city. I assume that's why we're going with the number we are, is that's probably the uniform code we're trying to hit. Something I struggle with this one, and this happened when we were on 10th Avenue too, I was on council at the time as well. I understood for that one, just because it's an emergency route, we needed hospital access. I'm kind of wondering the specific push to adjust the integrity of this neighborhood. It's an older, more historic neighborhood. I wonder how heavy is traffic flow that we feel we need to widen it. I would almost wonder, why don't we just narrow it to all match the narrowest section? That actually usually increases public safety and makes cars slow down. I personally run on this route all the time because I come up St. Anne's Hill, go down Skyline, and then run by the Millette House. So now you guys know my running route. It's not that heavily trafficked when I'm on it. I understand it does go by Millette, or it's near there. But I'm just kind of curious what our mindset is on choosing the number we're choosing, if it's just a standard, or, and then really, do we have to be, and I don't want to set a precedent or anything like that. It's just, it's so difficult in these older parts of town, especially like Ward B is just full of a lot of like the most interesting flavor. And I understand these guys being nervous about the trees and having them coming out. I struggle with it too. I honestly sit there and go, we should have a extremely good reason for feeling the need to widen this and put those at jeopardy. But I don't know, I'd like some feedback on that, on why we're choosing the road width we're choosing, if it's just purely standards, or is there an option that we don't have to go that wide and we could narrow it, because strong towns would argue, keep it skinny.
City Engineer Peterson?
So, I don't know the exact lengths, but the majority of the roadway width is staying the same. There's a block, maybe 2 blocks on the eastern edge that is significantly narrow, so narrow that you really couldn't park cars on the street. So we kept the 36 feet because that was the majority of it, and it would allow parking on the street. So that was kind of the thought process.
Councilman Hoyer, any follow-up on that?
No, it's kind of difficult to really assess it without looking at it and knowing each narrow section and where it is. I've lived in a lot of different communities that do have varying widths of roads. And in some of those ones where it's a little tight, and sometimes you feel like you gotta let the car ahead of you go by the parked car first, and then you feel comfortable going by it. But it's just challenging, again, because like, I'll be honest, I literally run in the road in this part of town because there's no cars. And the sidewalks, I would argue, could possibly use some updating in some areas because I am running in the road. There's a reason. But I have a hard time widening roads and taking out these older historic trees. They don't come back very fast, and the varieties that we've chosen don't necessarily grow super fast. So it's tough. I mean, it affects their utility bills. It affects the aesthetic of the neighborhood. It's just, again, you got to have a really good reason in my book for me to say yes to that.
Councilman Peters.
And that's why we chose to live there.
That's
or
why we bought that house,
the
is because
house,
of the neighborhood and the trees. We
and
grew
the
up in that
traffic
neighborhood.
and so on and so forth. So,
And if you wanted to, you could have a seat. but
Okay.
Please stand by, because we might have more questions for you. I just, you don't need to stand up there the entire time, but thank you. Councilman Peters.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm just going to keep my comments along the same lines as Councilman Hoyer. I don't know if I have any questions quite yet, but maybe just some comments. And we find ourselves here a couple times a year with this discussion. And I call it established neighborhoods, because these neighborhoods were built a time ago, and we don't have a great policy, because it's hard to enact a policy that's uniform across the city for these established neighborhoods. But in the new developments, there's a requirement to put in a sidewalk. So I would use Kaylee's example. She just bought this home, 318 Fifth Ave, right? That's your home? She just bought this home. There's no sidewalk here. It's really, even if you did put a sidewalk in, I don't know where it would go, because to the west, it's a dead end. And so I'm putting myself in her shoes. She bought this home, and now she's gonna be told that she has to pay for a sidewalk that she didn't know she was gonna have to have. So I think that's one side, is putting in sidewalks that aren't currently there and asking our citizens to pay for it. It's a whole other topic to redo a sidewalk that's already there, and I think that makes sense because people are used to it. There's typically enough space there. But we ran into this issue, I think it was on 12th Avenue. That was last summer. We had a council chambers pretty full with folks that came in here and said, well, we don't want sidewalks. And we voted those sidewalks out of that plan. And so for me to sit here and say that we're going to, agree to put sidewalks in for this plan for ultimately the same reasons, I don't think is good on us. It comes down to a right-of-way issue. It comes down to Councilman Hoyer's points, do we even need to widen the roads? So, I'll keep my comments directly on the sidewalks for now, because the trees is a whole other topic I don't think I fully understand quite yet. But on the sidewalks itself, I think that we need to take a hard look at removing the plan, because I'm confused as to what we're even really doing here. And, the question that Reed had earlier was, are they going to, the existing sidewalks, so the Rockies, for example, they paid to put in a sidewalk, and if that one is not, let's say it's 4 feet wide, I'm not sure how wide it is, but let's say it's 4 feet wide, we're gonna put in 5 feet wide sidewalks. Do we have to rip that one out and put in a 5-foot one? So those are some of the questions I think I have, and if I'm them, I'm asking those same questions as well. So I'm not excited about it. I think it's hard for us as a council to pick winners and losers on sidewalks, and I think we need a better policy before we can move forward.
Thank you. Councilman Shetty?
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, on the sidewalk, I've been part of some meetings here in the last few years, and I've kind of looked at it from both perspectives. In fact, probably prior to me being on the council, like Ms. Steiner, I probably would have, if I'd have been in her shoes, I'd have been like, well, what's the point? Why not just leave it as is? It's working great. There's not much traffic. The more I'm been sitting here and getting an education on sidewalks and neighborhoods and streets, there absolutely are pros and cons both directions. So on the ADA side of it, when we're doing a new construction, or reconstruct, if you will, in a neighborhood, I believe that's trying to become our policy, to where that is when we will update that neighborhood with sidewalks. And it sounds, it's a decent policy to want to upgrade, and that's the time to do this. Now, granted, we can come up with a policy as well for other neighborhoods, even without reconstruct. Do we just start putting in sidewalks? We sure can. I've been on both sides where I've thought, well, maybe that isn't the right place to put a sidewalk in. And other times it's been like, well, maybe it is. So it is challenging because of the aesthetics of a neighborhood. But when I mentioned the ADA thing, I know, I live in an old house built in 1880, so it's an old neighborhood. And, a year and a half ago, I come down with meningitis and lost my hearing and balance. And I had to use a walker for about a month or so around my sidewalks in my neighborhood. And we just never know when something's going to come up where those sidewalks are going to be vital for even one person in your neighborhood. So like tonight, I'm leaning more towards, as much as I've actually voted against sidewalks in the last few years, but more and more as I look through this, I'm realizing the necessity of, we got to start somewhere and put sidewalks in. So as long as we're doing it correctly, but I get the trees, I enjoy my neighborhood and old trees as well. And so I understand the tree portion of it. I guess what I'm just sharing here is that as we decide this, even the width of the street, the neighborhood I live in, we can park on both sides. And I do have a question for City Engineer Peterson possibly. When the question was asked here about the 36-foot wide road. In the new construction, new developments, like up by Derby Downs, we changed the width to, do you remember what the width was of the road on the new development up there last year?
Well, our new engineering, what's that? Our new engineering design standards is 36 feet now.
It's 36 now, so that's what, I remember that was discussion. I voted no, it originally was supposed to be wider than 36. I voted no on that because I wanted to keep the width, because at 36, it's even a little challenging to have traffic pass through. Even 2 more feet wider and you can have cars parked on both sides. In these older neighborhoods, at least my neighborhood, there's a lot of cars parked on the streets. So that's a good time to get the street widened so we can actually park cars better on the streets. So I see the value of widening a street. I see the value of sidewalk. Like I say, I've been on both sides of this, but as of tonight, and I understand the property owner's concerns with the sidewalk, because if I was in some of your shoes, I'd be like, no, let's not put a sidewalk in. But I do appreciate I believe it's a 10-year, can I go on the tax? I guess if someone could ask that question, what's the time frame for the sidewalks? For how long they have to pay that tab? And is there interest on that? I guess if we could have those 2 answers as well.
City
I'll
Manager?
take it. It is up to 10 years, and there is an interest provision of up to 10%. However, it's typically significantly less than the 10%.
Thank you for that. Because
And we can waive the 10%.
Personally, that's the one caveat that I would rather not make someone put sidewalks in and then make them to pay interest. I would vote no for that reason alone. However, I do see the value of putting sidewalks in, so if we can keep that in mind when we're doing this on the interest, I'm not a fan of forcing to charge interest on it. So anyway, I digress. That's where I'm at currently.
Manager?
I'd like to point out a couple of things along this particular roadway that might be helpful. This is really different than the 12th Avenue project that has been referenced. 12th Avenue did not have existing sidewalks. This is a neighborhood that has sidewalks on at approaching 90% of the entire roadway on both sides. This is really a rare neighborhood in the community to have sidewalks on both sides. Now, some of the sidewalks do not meet the standards that our city engineer has talked about. What I would urge you to consider is perhaps there's a compromise here where if a 48-inch sidewalk will save trees, what are the pros and cons of going with a 48-inch sidewalk in those particular sections? And continuing with the 60-inch sidewalk, which is the modern design standard, where it makes sense. Is that something, City Engineer Peterson, that we could look at?
We can look at it, just maybe for more information. But when you have less than a 60-inch, a 5-foot sidewalk, then you end up having to have passing lanes, so to speak, on the sidewalk. But that's something we can look into, see if we have the appropriate space for that.
Councilman Allen?
Just a couple questions, I think. We don't really have a sidewalk policy in the city currently. Is that correct?
I think we might. We have a reference to a policy. I will admit I have not read it.
Executive Director Case, can you?
Thank you, and I was going to talk during over 20 years ago, the city of Watertown contracted with the First Planning District to do a sidewalk assessment where we GPSed all sidewalks, existing sidewalks in the community, where we had handicapped accessibility, whatnot. We also made suggested policies on an arterial network of sidewalks and also recommended policies regarding sidewalks on one side of the street versus the other, so that there was a continuing pedestrian traffic flow. And as staff has said, the design, every planner today, you talk about complete streets. That means sidewalks along with the street. I'm a firm believer in Commissioners Hoyer's. I hate that we have 36-foot wide streets. We have, just to do the finance, how much more it costs to repay them, how much it costs to put the snow. There's more costs with wider streets. In older parts of town, I'm 32 and 34-foot streets are fine. Park on one side of the street versus the other. There's so many other things. I think what's going on here, and I would agree with Kyle Peters, that the city, before we keep going down this road of replacing something every year and we have fights and we have neighborhoods, you as leaders need to be coming up with a policy. There was some work done 20-odd years ago. I'll admit the city council never adopted it at that time because they didn't want to tear the lid off that can. But they spent good resources and we had good conversations at the planning commission, at the city council level. Nothing was ever done. So you have a basis that you could at least start with to have those conversations. And I would encourage you as elected officials to come up with that umbrella policy on what we should be doing in 90% of the cases. And then when we have the 10 or 15% oddball cases, we've got a responsive policy that can help the citizens. And I was going to say this earlier, but I didn't know if it was going to come this way. So thank you.
Thank you, Executive Director. Follow-up, Councilman Nelson?
Yeah, just a little bit of a follow-up, because I know this goes up past the Millette House, and there isn't, it doesn't.
It actually ends one block prior to the Millette House.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Hoyer?
I just wanted to clarify my stance a little bit. I really appreciate Todd pointing out the instance on, there's a lot of options to this. When you do get those narrow roads, a lot of times cities will just make it so you park on one side of the street. There's only one side available for parking on those narrow ones. My mother-in-law lives just off of the McKenna Park District in Sioux Falls. They literally do that. Doesn't really pose a huge issue. It doesn't seem like they have a lot of problems with it. Again, this isn't like a super, at least from my experience, hasn't been a super highly trafficked area. So those things can kind of work if it's not a main thoroughfare. I 100% believe in sidewalks. Unfortunately, they do cost money. They're ADA for a reason. I will point out that this part of town is riddled with corner bump outs that are stairs and are not accessible at all to somebody who's handicapped. It's a huge problem. And I would also point out in my previous comment, this is my running route and I run in the street. I'm running in the street because there's no sidewalks and there's no real good way to go about it. Now, if there were sidewalks, it'd probably be more likely that somebody would utilize them. That's just a classic problem. It is hard in these old neighborhoods. Keep in mind, these predate zoning. We didn't have zoning ordinances at this point. We adopted them as a community in the 50s. Everything here is 50 years older than that. You know what I mean? So it is challenging. It's really hard. And we do need to get consistent with what our policy is. There's a lot of instances where we allow a sidewalk on one side of the street because there's one side that has it done, and then we don't make the other side do it. That can work, sure. It goes back to we love doing studies and then, paying a lot of money for them, and then we just go, cool. We'll look at that in 20 years. It'd be good if we got consistent. The roads widening, again, I'm not sold 100% on that. There's so much research that says don't do that. I love the cost savings argument. Why add more pavement when we don't necessarily need to? Because then we're gonna have to maintain more pavement. So if we can keep it narrower, that's cost savings. As long as traffic is willing, and honestly, again, I think most people push to other main roadways anyway. This isn't a key one. But the sidewalks are important. I really think they are. I think Councilman Shetty did a good job of pointing out, you don't know when you're gonna get into a situation that you actually need those things. And when you don't need them, you don't notice them. And so I do think it's important that we take it into consideration. And that is one of the issues in this part of town, that they're not even close to ADA compliant. You couldn't get up on certain areas if you wanted to. So I do think we should take a hard look at that. I would 100% be in favor of the sidewalks. If we can work with folks to get around a tree, great. I mean, we literally put sidewalks, this is not the right answer, don't do this, but like, we literally put sidewalks on the curb, on the highway, which is like the last thing you should do for public safety, but that's what we did. I think we can find a solution that kind of meets both ends of this. I think we'd be able to maybe preserve what makes these neighborhoods beautiful. I mean, other communities just deem them historic neighborhoods. The Millet House is literally right there. There's a lot of interesting and historically important architecture in this part of town. I think if we can keep the character of those neighborhoods as it is, all the better. If their ash trees have been treated, of course, that's a really hard pill for me to swallow. That would go, cool, great, out. I'd hope we'd consider if we end up having to do something like that, that we'd do a reimbursement or something if there's proof of receipt, but because we encouraged it. But I just really think asking for the sidewalks and not widening the road to the point where you need to take everything out, I think that's a pretty fair in between. If we can entertain that, that'd be great. But I just think imposing modern street standards in a predating historic area, it doesn't necessarily jive. And I think there's special instances where we don't necessarily have to achieve that modern standard of road width. Again, but sidewalks and walkability matters 100%. I do think that matters, especially in this area, because guess what? It is one of the prettier parts of town. People walk this. I run into people all the time walking it, but they're doing the same thing I'm doing. They're cutting out into the road and then coming back in or weaving around cars. We should do a PSA on don't park your vehicles over the sidewalk or the public right of way. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. If we're gonna actually widen this in this resolution and pass, like try to push that way, I'm gonna say no. But I think we can find a middle ground, and I would hope we can.
Thanks, Councilman. I want to just make sure that everything is clear because widening the sidewalks is different than widening the road. So different, but, and it's weird because then we also have trees coming into this, but that is a fair question. I would just say I want that asked and answered before I go to Councilman Peters, is why this road, why this wide?
Well, the answer is, in the majority of it was 36. Actually, I think even some of it was as big as 38, but we kept everything 36. And like I said, there was like a block or whatever, a block or two that was a little narrower that we widened out. If I remember right, it was like a 2 foot on either side. So that would make it, at one point it was 32 feet. We went to 36.
I will also ask a question before I go back to the councilman, but Councilman Hoyer says that he runs on this road quite often. Now, I have driven it. I will say it's in bad condition, but I assume that there's some sort of traffic study that justifies that this road should take, I mean, because there's a lot of roads in town that could be, could accept a lot of investment into making them better that might have more traffic on them. I was just wondering, in that regard, why this road?
This road's been on the list for at least 5 years to redo. This one has sanitary sewer and water main as part of the project. The road condition, the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, we're addressing those corners, so they'll be ADA compliant. All those things kind of tied together. Why this road?
Thank you, city engineer. And I ask that in part because there's some things that are going to be happening with this reconstruct that is not just road related that I think all homeowners would appreciate. The sanitary sewer, the curb and gutter, the water mains all being improved. Those are things that are a huge improvement to this neighborhood that can only happen when you tackle a road, because like we've all discussed, it's a historic neighborhood. We're not going to just go in and tear up everything to address certain aspects of it. So this is an example. I know that it's difficult, but as long as we're tearing into the road, we're trying to bring some improvements to that neighborhood as well, and we are. So that is one thing to add to the conversation. And some of the other things. So I've got a long waiting list here. So I've got Councilman Peters and Councilman Allen, then Councilman Hoyer. Councilman Peters?
I'll be brief. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. One comment I forgot to make here when I was going through earlier was the cost share piece. I see here in this proposal, it's $9.86 per linear foot that would be essentially paid for by the landowner. You know, as we talk about moving forward and getting a policy, I think we should take a hard look at what we make our residents pay for. If it's our idea and we want to put in the sidewalks, I don't think it's reasonable to say, here's a bill, and I'll use Kaylee, for example. She bought her home and there's no sidewalk, and now we're up here voting to put in a sidewalk on her property that she has to scoop snow on, maintain, mow the boulevard, and yet she has to pay for a share of that. I don't think that's very fair. So just to comment as we talk about moving forward here. And then the next thing I would say, and I think Justin was alluding to it, is I want to be respectful to staff as well, because I know you guys have put a lot of work into this, and I don't think that we've done a good job looking at the map in Watertown, asking what's next. Because as I sit here and look at this, I think, well, why wouldn't we spend money in the Highland Park and the drainage area issue that we've got? Why are we putting money into this? Because to me, it doesn't seem like putting in this much money in this particular neighborhood makes a lot of sense, because half the neighborhood doesn't want it. We have a drainage issue where we were at a gentleman's house this past summer, and he was literally getting water in his garage because the road was rebuilt so much that there was no more curb. That seems to be something we should be spending a little bit more time on. So I think we should do a better job as a council to get with the staff and figure out what does the next 5 years look like, so they don't run into this issue either. Thank you.
Councilman Hoyer.
Oh, I was just gonna toss out, the road's not in the best conditions. I wanna be clear on that. I would just ask to redo a road, which also, by the way, we're gonna find surprises as soon as we get to those pipes. You remember the last time we did work up in this neighborhood? It was like, you'd have a 4-inch pipe and it would cut down to a 2-inch pipe and then it would expand back to a log. Like, we've got some weird plumbing up in this area, and a lot of them have trunk lines that go to the properties, and they share like lines that come from the houses, pool up together, then come to the road. So like, we're gonna find some surprises. So I mean, anticipate that's coming. Also, maybe it's an opportunity to switch out a lead pipe if you potentially have one going to your house. But the other extra piece I was gonna ask is, to redo the road and do that work, do you need to widen the road to do it, or could you do it at its current width?
You could keep the same width. The majority of the project is 36 feet. It's really only a block or two. And at this point, I mean, it's designed to essentially be a complete redesign if we were going to change it.
Sure, it's just, can I follow up, Mayor? One more? I know that costs us money. I understand that. But sometimes I just don't, and I know you guys have probably put a ton of work into it. I understand, I respect that. But us being willing to go back to the drawing board, sometimes I think it shows a lack of creativity. I think it shows a lack of willingness to work on it. And I know we're working really hard to do the right things on stuff, guys. And again, I respect the time you put into it, but sometimes you got to go back to the drawing board. I'm not saying it's passing like that or not, but I think we should be willing to do it if there's an option. And then we're setting a precedent for ourselves that if we're in historic neighborhoods like this, because Highland's probably going to see it too, that if we can respect the integrity of the neighborhood, I would argue we try to. Of course, all new developments going forward, absolutely, let's get them to standard. But I would hope that we'd have a willingness.
Mayor, could I?
Community
Jump in?
Development Manager Hannon.
Thank you, Mayor. So to Councilman Hoyer's point there, definitely something that has been looked at, and like the engineering department has reduced the street width from 39 to, well, and actually 41 to 39 to 36. And the reason behind it is so that in a neighborhood, they try to allow for parking on both sides of the street, where in some of these areas you don't have that. So that is an amenity for guests and whatnot. Again, though, I mean, I'm an advocate for making them as minimal as possible in neighborhoods because of the traffic calming that it does provide. But again, so that would be something that the engineering department would bring forward in their engineering design standards where these policies are adopted. And then I just wanted to be clear too, that we do have a sidewalk ordinance. I know Todd had mentioned that we have the study, but it is an ordinance and it is required. And we don't have the actual, like the 5-foot or 60-inch width, but that we call out the ADA standards. So as Engineer Peterson stated, if you don't have them at 60 inches, then you can do other alternative designs to meet that ADA standard. But that's what I have to add.
Thank you. Council, I have a few comments. First off, okay, I'll just say, no, we're bouncing between sidewalks and trees. I'm not going to speak for the entire council, but I have heard from a couple councilmen. In my mind, given the timeline and the unique circumstances that the entire world is facing with the emerald ash borer, if the property owners have paid to treat the trees, which they did prior to learning about this redo, I would say we should find a way to work with them. They're good trees and they're paying to keep them. We should respect that. I think that there is support in the council for that. As far as the width of sidewalks, I have become a much stronger proponent of sidewalks. And the reason being, in large part, is I feel like I made, in my mind, the wrong vote on a couple different sidewalk ordinances. I think that there should be some flexibility, but in the circumstances, I will say 12th Avenue of last year, we had all these people saying, why do we need sidewalks? Nobody walks there anyway. Well, you could say, well, nobody walks there because you don't have a sidewalk. It's a chicken and egg thing, and that is definitely part of it. But also, the argument there, and I'm not singling them out because we've heard this literally every time we've done a major road reconstruction, because someone will say, my house doesn't have a sidewalk, it wouldn't go anywhere. Well, again, it doesn't go anywhere because we don't follow our own rules of connecting them to other places where we build a road. So in the case of 12th Avenue, we had a circumstance where we voted that down, and literally a couple months later, we had a couple different property owners, including Watertown Christian School, who then has to go put in a sidewalk. So the sidewalk that we voted down on 12th Avenue would have connected to a school had we followed our own policies. So I'm going to be pretty strong in voting for a sidewalk, but I do think that there needs to be some flexibility. This 60-inch, 5 feet width of a sidewalk is a very, very wide sidewalk, and there's got to be some consideration to the homeowners. If it can save some trees, if it can allow some flexibility, I'm all for being ADA compliant. And I'll have an announcement on something at the end of the meeting that might be able to help us out a little bit. But as sympathetic as I am to the ADA rules, building these incredibly wide sidewalks for the, I would say, very rare instances where you have a wheelchair going one way and a wheelchair going the other way is pretty rare. And to force a landowner to build those very, very generous standards is quite a bit. I think that we can work with landowners, especially in the case of the Ronkies. They paid to put a sidewalk in, and it's a fine sidewalk. I don't see any reason why we would force them to pay any more to make it 12 inches wider. So that's where I stand on these issues. And I do know, I think city manager is with us. I think city engineer Peterson, I think we're all in agreement that we do need to figure out sidewalks and come up with something so that we don't have this debate again. City manager Stager?
I'd like to maybe offer a few points that can maybe bring the conversation together. First of all, this project's need was identified approximately the year 2020, and the activity to design this project launched in late 2023 with approval in early 2024. So all great comments have been made about street width, and I think all of us agree we want the narrowest street feasible. it's too late on this one. It's either don't do a street project this year or continue with the average width of 36 feet. In
Because
terms,
city manager, we've already, I mean, council, we have already approved this road.
absolutely, this is approved, this is, the issue before us is a resolution of necessity on sidewalks and the ability to save some trees by doing sidewalks differently. In terms of the economics that we're talking about here, the resolution of necessity will assess about $26,000 across about half of the homeowners that have either no sidewalks or substandard sidewalks. That breaks down to about $16,000 for substandard sidewalks and about $8,000 for sidewalks. And I would argue, I maybe disagree with Councilman Peters, everybody else paid for their sidewalks. So in completing a neighborhood, I think it's fair to ask people without sidewalks to pay for their sidewalks. And we're very generous in allowing people to pay for those sidewalks over a 10-year period of time, often without interest. Now, I think the argument here about putting in a sidewalk that may be an excessively wide sidewalk that causes people to lose trees, which are a big part of the value of their home, is a legitimate question to ask. And what I think I'd recommend is we need to proceed with the road project as we have it, but the sidewalks should be going in late in the project. I do think we need to redesign the sidewalks around saving as many trees as we can, even if that means a 48-inch sidewalk, which I think is pretty standard throughout the community. May mean that we have to utilize driveways or other methods for allowing passage on sidewalks, but I think our homeowners have asked us to save their trees, and we should look at doing that.
City manager, so your recommendation would be to, on this item in particular, because as you noted, the road reconstruction is going forward. We've already passed that, that's going to happen. Question is the sidewalks, which is what is in front of us right now. Do we vote this up or vote this down? If we want to, I think council is largely in support, if not unanimously in support of having some flexibility in understanding the sidewalks and the trees more.
I would recommend voting in favor of this. This is dealing with the economics of the project. I think it's standard. We shouldn't look away from a neighborhood that has almost complete sidewalks and vote it down because a couple of homeowners don't have sidewalks. I think they'd be going against everything I've heard you guys say about recognizing the necessity for sidewalks. I think separately we can address the design of sidewalks, which certainly are not going to get wider. And so any cost of the assessment would only be going down.
And just to clarify, this is the resolution, the assessment, so the actual cost of the sidewalk is going to be debated at a future council meeting, correct?
I don't know that there's a lot of debate at the future meeting. It will be assigned to the roles based upon the actual cost.
So, Councilman Hoyer?
Just one last clarifying question. When it comes to the areas that we are, like, actually here, it's simpler. How many trees are coming out due to road width expansion? And then how many would have been marked just for the sidewalk situation? That's kind of a tough question, I know, but do we have any idea of what that is?
I don't have that information now, but we can look into it. I don't have the answer.
So I think the action is somebody needs to get some brown paint and go cover up some X's pretty quick because the plan was to begin moving these trees midweek.
Council, I don't do a show of hands or anything, but if you disagree with me in my wish to keep the trees, which would mean covering those X's, then please let me know right now if you disagree with me. I think if you agree that we want to find a way to keep the trees, then okay. I think we need to cover up some X's. Councilman Jurgens, you had something?
That was a great summary. I believe we should do everything we can to save those trees. I think it's customer service worthy to talk about going out and having a quick conversation with them before you start putting X's and O's and marking them up with white paint and green paint and pink paint. In the world of taking care of people in the right way, we're servants to them. And we don't need a lesson in that. We just aren't doing a great job sometimes in that, because as a government entity, we're just used to going in there and going, this is the way it's gonna be. And that is where we get rooms full of people. So that was one issue, and so I completely agree with both City Manager Stager and the mayor. Do what we can, narrow where we can the sidewalks. But a lot of this comes down to this, well, this is the standard. And I know, Todd, it's good to have standards. I agree with that. But this standard in this part of the community, we've known that we're working on this for 4 years, and then we're still building a 36 wide. That's what's causing the tree problem also. Why are we just going in there with a 36 wide plan? Why aren't we taking these things into account? Those trees have been there for how many years? And now we're having the issue and the conversation tonight for, that's okay, it's been great discussion for an hour, but for other projects coming ahead, I would hope that those that are in charge of designing the trees and putting this project in front of the city, in front of those that are living along those major roads that are having to be reconstructed, and in front of the council, would do some pre-planning. I know they've done a lot of work. I get it. It's hard. But if we skinnied that thing down from 36 to 31, 32, if we skinnied down the sidewalk, we wouldn't be having as huge of a tree issue here. So again, I agree with the mayor. I agree with what most of the sentiment here is. Don't take out the dang trees unless you have to. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Councilman Shetty?
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, yes, for the insight tonight. So when we had that discussion about just changing our standards here last year to 36 feet, one of the things was we had Chief Rowland was up and talking about public safety and the fire and our equipment working through neighborhoods. That was also in consideration as far as how narrow do we go for public safety as well. We have brought it down from different numbers. So what I want to mention, though, as far as tonight, too, just for the public and for our sake as a council and for staff, that our Public Works Department and Engineering Department, they've already worked to bring the street widths down. They've come up with standards to follow. That's what they've put up for. That they put forward was a standard. So that by no fault of the engineering or public works department, they've got a standard. That's what they've been going with. They've even narrowed, like I said, they've narrowed the roads. The goal it's been policy here for quite some time to put sidewalks in whenever we do a reconstruct, and rightly so. But these are great concerns by neighborhoods and questions, and as a council, so I appreciate that why we're having. I appreciate the time to have this conversation. But just again, for public to know, this isn't a city staff issue. They've been doing their job, I believe. It's maybe more of us as a council on listening to our conversation tonight and listening to the public, and how do we do a better job of maybe tackling this for once. So just want to make sure I get that out there. And then also, as far as if my math is right, if I have a 50-foot lot, so if it's $9 a lineal foot, I believe, if I stretch that out over 10 years, it'll cost me about $50 a year to pay this for 10 years. If it's, $500, $10 for 50 feet. Is that right? $500? So, I mean, I guess that's not that, for me as a homeowner, if I had to, pay $500 over 10 years, that's not such a bad deal to put a sidewalk in. If I had to put it in myself at full price, it's gonna be a whole lot more money than that. So it's gonna help the neighborhood, it's gonna help your neighbors. So but yes, taking consideration with the sidewalks, the trees, we'll work through that, and let's do that, but I still think we should, move forward with where we're at tonight. So.
Thank you. I do, well, one question before a comment. The $9 per linear foot of a sidewalk is not the full cost. Is that correct? Because the full cost, $9 is just what we assess the homeowner, correct?
Correct.
And the city, so the total cost per linear foot is more towards like $28, $29, correct?
Yep, it's $29.
So the city is already paying for $20 per linear foot of a sidewalk that we put in.
Correct.
I'm just gonna go out there and say that if you have a property that does not currently have a sidewalk, I think the city of Watertown should pay those extra $9. If we are forcing someone to put in a sidewalk where one does not exist, the city should pay for that. If it's one where a sidewalk already exists, I can see where that is an asset that is part of the house, that is part of what you maintain as a homeowner, because we're not just forcing, in particular, like, you know, we had one homeowner here, but there's other homes that are going to be affected. We're not just forcing them to pay for a sidewalk, we are also going to be forcing them to shovel it every time it snows for as long as they live there. It comes with a cost, and I think that that's one of the things that you need to consider. However, I do think that sidewalks in a neighborhood actually do add value to the neighborhood. It adds value to all of your neighbors. It creates more camaraderie, more friendship, more safety. So there's definitely an asset to the homeowner for having a sidewalk, but with that said, where it doesn't exist, and we've done it before, and that has always been one thing that I've had a problem with, and we've done it on 10th Avenue, we've done it on 7th Avenue, did away with them completely on 12th, and I'm just gonna say, I live and learn, and my attitude has changed, and my attitude is now, if we're gonna force someone to put in a sidewalk where one doesn't exist, which I think we should pay for it. Councilman Hoyer?
I would just caveat that if new developments decide to put houses in, that they be required to put their sidewalk in before they sell it to.
I would say in existing neighborhoods.
There we
yes,
go.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? So I would say City Manager Stager, in regard to what I just said, would that affect the vote at all? I mean, we're still moving forward with this needs to be done. We're figuring out exactly how it's going to be done.
Yeah, my vote doesn't change regardless because I don't vote.
Yeah.
I think it's premature to look at a policy change like that. But I think I would advise you, you're probably making the wrong decision if you were to do that tonight. There are decades of history on sidewalk policy and assessments, and the city's contribution in the past has been the $20 per foot. Maybe we review the $20 per foot, and because I don't think that's been changed for quite some time. But I think it's a blanket statement that would lead to a bunch of interpretation if we as staff are trying to figure out if it's an existing neighborhood that we are forcing a sidewalk to be placed when every other neighborhood by ordinance requires a sidewalk. I'd recommend that we hold a work session on it and not make any change this evening.
Councilman Peters.
Just a quick clarification. So if we vote yes tonight, it's for the road construction, and we can at a later date decide if we want to move forward with sidewalk?
Nope. Tonight is purely on assessing sidewalks. An assessment across approximately 33 property owners totaling $26,000. So to follow Councilman Shuddy's math, on average about $90 per year unless a homeowner decides to pay for it up front.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. So a comment that I have before we take a vote here is that when we voted on the 12th Avenue project, and then I think it was 3rd by Walgreens, were the two sidewalk projects that are coming to mind right now. I believe I voted no on both of those, and we haven't had an updated discussion on what we're gonna do with the sidewalk policy since then. So it'd be disingenuous for me to vote yes tonight, since I voted no in the past. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that we haven't talked about sidewalks since we've had those votes. Thank you.
Well, there you go, having to make a good point. Any further comments? Councilman Mormon.
I would just say, if we didn't, for existing homes that didn't have sidewalk, if we didn't make them pay for the sidewalk that we're putting in, just food for thought, probably the argument we would hear from homeowners that have a sidewalk already they would say, I had to pay for it at one time, and now I have to pay for it again, and the person who never paid for a sidewalk in the first place doesn't have to pay for it now. You know, so I could see almost a reverse argument of people saying, well, I've already paid for my sidewalk once. The person who has never paid for their sidewalk would have to pay for it now. So just food for thought. I could just see that being an argument if we wanted to try and push an issue of, if you didn't have a sidewalk currently, that the city should pay the whole thing.
Thank you. Any further comments? Okay. If you are in favor of this resolution, even though, just to make it clear, we're going to be looking at the trees, and we're going to be allowing for some flexibility on the sidewalks. Okay. And that will be figured out when? Finance Officer Bob Zine?
I think the only thing that I wanted to add is just the fact that the resolution necessity does not do anything at this stage other than get the ball rolling. So this will come back to the council if there is any assessment after the sidewalk discussion of where we're doing work, that would all come back after the project ends.
Okay. Thank you. I will make one comment because I think Councilman Peters made an excellent point. I'm still going to vote on the opposite side of him on this one simply because he is right. We have voted against this twice in recent memory. But both times we voted against our own regulations. We have regulations that we have had for 20 years. We just are choosing not to follow them. So I totally agree that we need to get a better policy and a better understanding of this, and we also need to implement it with future road construction well before the fact, so that we can be much more aware of the concerns of the homeowners. But with that said, I know that I'm going against on this one, but I'm just saying, I've seen it firsthand where we don't follow our own policy and it comes back to bite us, and possibly in some cases, like in the Watertown Christian School, fortunately we haven't had an accident and most kids don't walk to school anymore, but any kid who does, you got to start with sidewalks somewhere, and this is close to Millette Elementary. So, City Manager Steger, you had one more thing?
I don't remember.
Okay. So I just wanted to explain why I will be voting in favor of this. So if you're in favor of this resolution, please say aye. If you're opposed, say nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine, please call the roll.
Okay. Jurens?
Aye.
Peters?
Nay.
Shetty?
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Hoyer?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Mormon?
Aye.
6 yes, 1 opposed.
Resolution carries. So I just want to make sure that for everyone who testified in regard to the trees, who are they going to contact? Or what's the follow-up on this going to be?
We have a project manager that can reach out to Craig Engen.
Okay. And we have your names that you came and testified. If you wanted to email myself, Craig Engen, go to the city website, make sure that we have your contact information so that we can follow up with you. So would that be adequate, at least as far as like the follow-up? I don't want you leaving here tonight and then not knowing what the next step is.
I'll have them.
Councilman.
I'll just get their contact information now.
Okay.
So just want to meet.
If that would be okay with you before you leave, if you wanted to write down your contact information. Thank you. We'll move on to item 12B. I'm going to allow a little bit of flexibility if Community Development Manager Hanton wants to testify. These are 12B and C are very similar. If you wanted to have some crossover in your testimony, you sure can. But 12B is the annexation of the second edition and zoning. So we have item 1, which is an approval of a resolution initiating annexation of a tract of land contiguous to the city of Watertown. Number 2 is second reading of ordinance 26-01, establishing the zoning designation of R1C Compact Single Family Residential District for the property to be known as Harmony Hill Annexation Second Edition. Community Development Manager Hanton.
Thank you, Mayor. So as stated, this, let's see here what IT has, what they're gonna show. If you just wanna pull up the agenda item and go to the map. I think that's how we were doing it now. So this is the annexation and zoning of a 2-acre parcel of property in the Harmony Hill subdivision. It will be brought in as R1C compact single-family residential zoning designation. And then the rezone is for a portion of property that was annexed previously that is approximately 7 acres. It is currently zoned A1 agricultural district, and then the rezone will also be to the R1C, the compact single-family residential zoning designation, to meet up with the property being annexed and zoned, to all be platted together for a residential project. So with that, I'll stand by if there's any questions.
Taking the steering wheel here, the mayor stepped out. Is this for, do you want to talk about 12C as well, or do you want to do B first?
Oh, I did them all.
Okay, great. Well, then, we'll look for a motion for approval.
So moved.
So moved by Hoyer, second by Allen. Okay, questions, council? Yeah. For a public hearing, anybody here that wishes to speak on this item? Yeah, come on up. Yeah, please, Dave. You just state your name again, that'd be great.
Dave Idy, manager of Coddington Clark Electric. I know this is taking place here. That other portion was already taken away from us. That was a couple of years ago. But anyway, we'd still like to serve all of it. That was our old area. But we'd still ask that Coddington Clark Electric serves that area. And we got power right there across the road. And would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishes to speak on this item? Okay, seeing none, we've got a first and a second. Council questions? Councilman Hoyer?
Just want to touch on it, Brandy, just because I haven't pulled it up yet to look at it. Does floodplain really impact this area very much, or is it all pretty much up high enough to be out of it, just with all the creeks and stuff that I see running through?
Yeah, there's no designated floodplain in this area.
Cool, perfect, thank you.
Real quick, Alan, would you like to comment on Mr. Idy's comments, or Lisa, not to put you guys on the spot, but just out of respect for him, he's waited out to ask that question.
You know, I'd comment after Mr. Idy's last visit in January. I've spoken with Mr. Idy, I've spoken with Watertown Municipal Utilities. Largely, the relationship is maintained through Watertown Municipal Utilities in terms of notification of annexations and how they work through those rules together. And so there's not much I can comment on that. In terms of how the Municipal Utilities Board is elected, that's something you guys could consider in the future. It would require an ordinance change, but that's not something I think you would take lightly or be able to take on at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Hoyer.
Would it be an ordinance change or a home rule charter issue? Just for our understanding on it.
We'd have to go back and look at the
Okay.
legislation that established the independent board.
I'm asking because there's a set period for when we can adjust home rule charter rules, correct? The Attorney Carrico.
I'd have to double check, but when utilities was created as a separate entity, it was voted on by the people, and at that time, that was when it was decided how the board would be configured.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's specifically in the charter, but it was a separate document at that time that the people voted for. So I believe, but I can double check, so I will double check, but it would need to be voted on by the public.
Yeah, it's a unique relationship.
Councilman Peters.
Got a question for you, Dave, if you don't mind. So when you're going through an annexation, and let's say that Coddington Clark builds out infrastructure, you guys front that cost. Let's say you're working it back into the rate over time instead of charging those customers. Is there a buyout plan that the WMU would have? So you guys, let's say you're 75% of the way through your infrastructure being paid off through that rate. Do you guys have a payoff with the WMU, or how does that process work?
Okay, state law requires that. They buy us back or pay back for infrastructure that's existing. Like at CAX edition, we got a line going right through there and everything. It happens, we've got more than just that too. When I became this has been something that's been a thorn in my side. I began the manager at Coddington Clark Electric about 17 years ago. First thing that happened is Municipal Utilities walks in the door, and they were going to take the territory where the National Guard Armory is. We got a map. This is all we got dots all over. So that was taken. I'm like, I was unfamiliar with this, and I didn't sign anything right away. I was like, what? I've never heard of this. You can take our territory away? I mean, that's what we live on. Then I realized that this is 17 years ago, the co-op signed an agreement with Municipal Utilities, and the agreement basically says, and this is in place, and we're in litigation over this agreement right now. We've been to the state legislature 2 years in a row. This stuff is not going to end until this is cleared up. The agreement that we have with the city of Watertown basically says if you have a meter that you serve in this area that's taken from you, you get to serve that meter. But I don't think that's happened once, at least since I've been the manager, where there's been a meter that we have served. There's some areas that we serve that are in city limits, and they were there being served beforehand, and they got left alone. There's a number of them. Like one example would be the gas station on Highway 20. We serve that. I don't know exactly how that happened years ago. So anyway, that's what the agreement says, is we serve an area that is, if we have a meter in there, we get to continue serving it. And then we forfeited any compensation from the municipal utilities in order to keep that meter. So that was all forfeited in this agreement. And about that same time, about 18 years ago, a decision was made. The agreement used to be every 3 years. It was a 3-year agreement and signed off, stamped, sent to the PUC. The PUC approved it and said, okay, yeah, this is your agreement. Somebody made the agreement perpetual. That's what our litigation is over. And that should have never happened. If somebody forgot to put a sentence in there saying if any other time anybody disagrees with this agreement, the agreement is no longer in place. We're trying to get out of that right now. And anyway, so that's the case. So we are not getting compensated for anything when these things happen. That's the answer.
Could I make a comment too of the, as far as the comment for notification? And I think the city wants to work with all other agencies too. It's just we don't have that in place. But what I would say, as far as with your guys' projects and putting investment into infrastructure, is that if you are within the growth area of the city of Watertown, to definitely reach out to learn what our growth pattern is, so that you are not so you're not making those investments and not having the communication.
Right, yeah, I'd love to see that.
It's a 3-mile radius.
I've been recently asked by Watertown Development, if you get an entity that comes in, they want to buy 2 megawatts or more, it's biddable. And there's a lot of this data center, crypto mining stuff going on. You guys have probably heard about it. They're just huge, enormous users of power. And of course, Watertown Development, they're saying, well, we're gonna have something huge come in. Well, you guys can both put in a bid on it. So I just read something today. I'm supposed to put in a bid on one of these, or not a bid, give information, let's say. And I noticed some of the areas around Watertown that I had no idea were being looked at for expansion. So I would love to see all that.
Yeah, and just like rule of thumb of where the city limits are today, it's the 3 mile is what we consider the joint jurisdiction district. So we have joint zoning between the city and the county. And because those are within the areas that we anticipate growth, obviously, because they're adjacent and beyond. But yeah, anytime that staff can have any discussion.
Right, and
We're
that 3
open to
mile,
that.
that's a long way. There's a lot of infrastructure in a 3 mile area. But that's why every other utility in the state of South Dakota has a line. You serve here, now everybody knows what they're spending money on. That's the way it is for everybody else. And, except not, and the only areas that it really affects is Watertown, Brookings, Vermillion, and Pierre. And at Pierre at one time, they were kicking around just making the whole town of Pierre a co-op. So they're to avoid the issue that was brought up, but anyway, thank you for letting me talk to you.
Thank you. Councilman Shetty, you had something?
Yes, this question may be for Mr., is it Idy, I believe, right? Correct? Or possibly someone else here that's in development. So when it comes to cities and growth like Sioux Falls or any other community, again, this must be an issue for every city. So I guess how does that, using Sioux Falls as an example, if someone could answer that, when a city like Sioux Falls grows, I guess most of the time, doesn't it just come into the utility department of the city?
Sioux Falls has a municipality right in the center of the city. They have made the decision not to grow because they have a WAPA allocation. They want to keep that for that little group because it's cheap power. They said, we aren't going to just jump out and start serving everything and water that down. The rest of Sioux Falls is served by an investor-owned utility. And again, like I said, all the other utilities, like between co-op to co-op, there's a line drawn. Co-op to Northwestern, co-op to Xcel Energy, there's a line drawn in the sand. You serve here, I serve there. And that was done in the mid-70s. I think there was a battle at that time between the cooperatives and the investor-owned utilities, and everybody forgot about the municipalities. They weren't growing. Back in 1975, Watertown was probably 10,000 people, you know. And these small towns, and there's little towns, there's maybe 30, 40 of them in South Dakota that are municipalities, but they don't grow. And a lot of the little towns, get this, the cooperative takes care of their infrastructure because they don't want to hire a lineman or anything, you know. So it's kind of an odd, it's a different, so.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I guess that was just to get an education on how this works for city growth. But I appreciate your input.
Council, any further questions or comments? I will make a comment. I'm saying I want to thank the work being done out at Harmony Hill for the sisters and that huge development going on the south of Watertown. I think it's still one of, if not the largest single development in all of South Dakota, and I am extremely appreciative for the work that is being done and for the growth in Watertown. Any further comments? If you are in favor of the, let's see, we've got the annexation, we've got the approval of resolution, and establishing the zoning designation. But it's one vote, correct? You got 2 votes. Okay. So you're saying, you're counting 12C as the 3rd vote, which I knew that.
Oh, okay.
But when it's combined under one letter.
So, but 2 votes.
Okay. So the motion, which was made by Councilman Hoyer, seconded by Councilman Allen, if I had my notes correctly, is just for 12B1, which is the approval of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye, opposed nay. Call the roll, please.
Jurens.
Aye.
Peters.
Aye.
Shetty.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Hoyer.
Aye.
Helene.
Aye.
Mormon.
Aye.
All in favor.
Motion carries. Item 12B2, can I get a motion on that?
So move.
Motion made by Councilman Hoyer, second by Councilman Shetty. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor will please say aye, opposed nay. Please call the roll.
Okay. Jurens.
Aye.
Peters.
Aye.
Shetty.
Aye.
Allen.
Aye.
Hoyer.
Aye.
Helene.
Aye.
Mormon.
Aye.
All in favor.
Motion carries. Item 12C is a second reading of an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Watertown for a portion of property to be known as Harmony Hill Annexation Second Edition from A1 Agricultural District to R1C Compact Single Family Residential District. Community Development Manager Hanton, anything to add?
I combined them all when I did the annexation and zoning. So again, this is just the rezone that will tie into the annexation and zoning piece that you just approved and be platted as one lot for future development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve the ordinance?
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Peters, seconded by Councilman Hoyer. Any discussion? Feel comfortable going to a voice vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Item 12D is an application for a transfer of a retail liquor license and video lottery license from APO LLC doing business as Sandy's Bar and Grill to Infinity Fun LLC doing business as Infinity Fun. And also all in the plat entitled Davlin's Addition to Watertown, Cottington County, South Dakota, to be effective on April 1st, 2026. I wanted to add that date because it was in there specifically. So we'll go to Finance Officer Bob Zine for more information.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yes, in front of the council tonight is a transfer of ownership for the liquor license and video lottery. Everything is in order. Notice has been made. Fees have been paid. Community Development has looked at the location and it does meet those requirements for the liquor license. So if there is any questions, I can answer them, and I do know that the applicant is here as well.
Thank you very much. I will open a public hearing. I do know the applicant is here. Thank you for your patience on this. You don't have to testify, but if you did have something to say, you sure can. Otherwise, you can stand by for questions. Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else would like to testify on this for public hearing? I'll close the public hearing. Can I get council action to approve the transfer? Motion made by Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilman Peters. Questions, comments, council? Councilman Shetty.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the applicants. They have a right to request this, and I appreciate what you're doing in your business there. I guess the decision tonight for us as a council is, you know, of course, to transfer this liquor license over. When we had the Legends, when that came across us here, there was a 5-2 vote in approval for that one, I believe. Me and another councilman voted against because the thought was, do we, that was just not for a liquor license, that was more for the malt beverage. But do we incorporate, how much do we incorporate the youth activities with the sale of alcohol? And so that was, it was a good discussion that we had a few years ago. Then when we got to this, to your location here last go around, I voted yes. That was one of those votes, as Mayor Helene said, sometimes you look back and go, oh, I probably shouldn't have. And for me personally, I love the business that you're doing there, but personally, do we incorporate alcohol sales with the establishment? So currently there is the malt beverage license, but as far as moving forward and transferring over the full liquor license and video lottery into, I just think as a governing body, we do have the right to try to analyze some of these, determine, is this a right fit for our community? Where do we want to go? I mean, there is the, you know, the right to, you know, to run your business as you will, and that's why I appreciate you guys coming forth with this. But then we still reserve the right to, is it the right fit for the city? So personally, I'm open to more discussion tonight on this, as it should be. We should just have some discussion. But I am personally not for voting to have the full-fledged liquor license in in this particular application. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hoyer.
Just a question on video lottery. The current law with it, is it that it remains out of sight from the public? I know that's kind of been a thing in the past, that it has to have some form of separation. Is that still how that law is?
That is correct.
Okay. Because I guess for me, like, you know, I have concerns as well. Granted, I do view most, oh, go ahead, please.
I'd also point out the building official did visit the establishment today, and the planned location of the video lottery meets state statute requirements.
Okay, can we ask more detail on where that would be? Like, is it kind of a, sometimes we kind of get some silly versions of this where it's like, well, there's a partition here and it's still totally visible, but versus it might be something else. I just want to have a clear understanding of.
Mr. Paulson, you can answer that question. You don't have to. You please come up to the microphone. We do have people watching and they can't hear if we're not testifying in a microphone.
So it will be its own room, like it right now. So I have, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 square foot in the back that isn't even utilized right now, that I'm moving Sandy's Bar and Grill, the whole thing pretty much to the back, so that I can have a better restaurant back there, because right now I get complaints about my food isn't, like, I have more of a concession stand. Well, I have a huge kitchen set up there, and I have a $60,000 oven that I'm barely even using, so I'm trying to utilize more of a restaurant in the back. I'll have your rear entrance, I'll have an outdoor patio, like everything, the whole Sandy's Bar, we'll say, is a complete separate, like there's a wall right now that you walk into Infinity, you don't even know that that's back there right now. That's how it'll be. You'll be able to come in the back, go in the restaurant bar, and not even know if there's anything out front. You'll be able to come in the front, and if you don't want to go into the bar or in the restaurant area, you won't even know that anything's back there. But from Infinity, you'll have to walk through the door into the restaurant and into another door, go into the casino. It's more sealed off than what my restaurant is now, for casino-wise anyways. Like, I'm not trying to, you know, on the beer, I get, you know, the beer, the alcohol, I anticipate for the alcohol to be more staying back there. Like, you know, yeah, if someone wants to come out and play bowling or something, they can, you know, have a couple drinks or whatever, but I don't anticipate people walking around with mixed drinks, you know, and I mean, we have policies in place to where people can't buy drinks and then go jump on the trampolines or something. I mean, that's my insurance stuff. I'm not trying to encourage any of that, so, I mean, I'm trying to keep this as safe and away from kids. Like I said, it's gonna be more away from kids into the new setup than it is in my current setup. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please identify yourself? I know who you are, but.
Jared Paulson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments, council? Councilman Shetty?
Thank you for that information, because that does, I mean, that helps, right? That's a little caveat part that I didn't see, that maybe none of us did. But my question now, though, is, and I appreciate your desire to separate it out, but if we approve this, that doesn't, legally speaking, it can be a portion, it can be any part of the building, any part of the business, as far as Infinity Fun. It doesn't have to be just back there by Sandy's Bar, would that be correct? Okay, so, I mean, even though you're doing what you can to keep it separate, we approve this, let's say you sell the business to someone else, they could, or you have a change of mind, it could still, we're not voting for keeping it in the back corner, that's your desire to do it honorably, but that's technically not what we're voting on, so just want to make sure I got that correct.
Mr. Paulson?
I'd also like to add that, like, I mean, granted, we can do whatever, but in the Family Fun Center up in Aberdeen, they have liquor. The ones in Sioux Falls have liquor. Like 10 or 12 that I visited before this, like all but like 2 had liquor. I mean, it's nothing new. It's nothing that I'm trying to add or do different. I mean, you know, it's not whatever. So I'd just like to add that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments?
Sure.
Councilman Jurgens?
So, Mr. Paulson, thanks for your investment in Watertown. I would add to that comment, I was in Kansas City for a volleyball tournament about 3 weeks ago. Brand new facility, hockey rink, area for volleyball, huge arcade, bowling alley, all in one complex. right in the middle was an open bar with food. And it seemed to be doing real well. So it's good that when we have state tournaments and we have things and people coming to town, they have things like this to do, because they've got off time. I know the mix of alcohol is an interesting subject, but I don't think it's for me to debate. It is being done, right or wrong, everywhere. And in order to compete and stay, worthy of staying in business, it's in the Dakotas, in Kansas City, and all around the country. You probably need to do it to provide and to make a living at it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Shetty?
Thank you for that, Councilman Jerns. Just to clarify that my concern was more the mixing it with youth activities. And some of these facilities, they're more adult oriented. And I'm not sure about the one you were talking about in Kansas City, but so just for me, it's just the youth activity side of it that I believe Infinity Fund is more targeted towards the youth. Thank you.
So my comments had nothing to do with what Councilman Shuddy's remarks were. They had to do with what I'm seeing around the country. And this is a youth facility only, but there's a lot of adults that have to be there for, in my case, I was there 8 hours a day for 3 days. And when people drop off their kids at the hockey, I mean, it's just, to compete against other cities, we need to have things like this. So thank you, Mr. Paulson, for what you have done.
Any further comments or questions? To say thank you, Mr. Paulson, I'm not in your business, but I can understand why you would think moving Sandy's closer, it helps both businesses. So I can catch that vision, and I think it could help Watertown. So I'll be voting in favor, and we will find out now how the rest of the council will be doing. So if you're in favor of this transfer, you'll vote aye. If you're against it, vote nay. Finance Officer Bob Zine.
Okay. Jurgens?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Nay.
Allen?
Aye.
Hoyer?
Abstain.
Get me off. Pauline?
Aye.
Mormon?
Nay.
What do we got? 4 in favor, 2 opposed.
Motion carries. Next item is an application for a transfer of ownership of a retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license from, is it Reeve, R-E-V-E, or Rev? From Rev LLC, doing business as Watertown Brewing Company, to Undeniable Worldwide LLC, doing business as Watertown Brewing Company at the same location. Finance Officer Bob Zine.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. If you're not opposed, I'm going to handle E and F together
Please
just
do.
because they're both the same. But yes, in front of the council is a transfer of ownership of a malt beverage and farm wine, as well as then a wine and cider license. Everything is the same as far as location, so this is just ownership. All fees have been paid, notice has been published, everything's in order. If there's any questions, I can answer them. Thank you.
I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to testify? I'll close the public hearing. Can I get a motion from the council to approve the transfer? Motion made by Councilman Allen, seconded by Councilman Peters. Discussion, council? I would just like to say, I mean, the owner is a little shady, but. And since he's abstaining, he can't defend himself. No. I wish you nothing but the best, Councilman. Councilman Shetty?
Someone can answer how the name Undeniable came to be.
Executive Chef Lindsay is a big fan of the term, and so out of respect for him.
All right. Any further questions, comments? Motion is to approve the transfer. If you're in favor of that, vote aye. Opposed, nay. Officer Bob Zine?
Okay, Jurgens?
Aye.
Peters?
Aye.
Shetty?
Aye.
Allen?
Aye.
Pauline?
Aye.
Mormon?
Aye.
All in favor.
Motion carries. Last item is an application for transfer of a retail wine cider license from Rev to undeniable worldwide. Has a little Step Brothers sound to it. Finance Officer Bob Zine, you've already testified. Do you have anything to add?
Nothing to add.
Anybody for a public hearing? I'll close the public hearing. Council action, can I get a motion to approve? Motion made by Councilman Peters.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Shoddy. Any discussion, council? All right. I will go to just a voice vote. Please note that Councilman Hoyer has abstained, so the voice vote will be for the 6 who are voting. All those in favor of approving this transfer, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to other business from the council. Any other business? This isn't announcements yet. This isn't announcements, but just other business. Is it business? I think it's business.
It's a clarification of something earlier.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to point out, and I apologize for being so late, and I know Mr. Idy had left, but I realize that both times that he has come forward, he has talked about the lack of notification and how he's here now, and I know Community Manager Hanton has kind of elaborated of how he can be more active. But technically, utilities doesn't notify until after annexation and plating. So when he's talking about, when Connington Clark is talking about that they haven't received notification, it's because under the state statute, it doesn't happen yet. You guys annex, then it's platted, then they do the notification. So I just wanted to clarify that. And now you can go on to other business.
Thank you. Any other business? Move on to city council member announcements and introduction of topics for future discussion. I will start, and I will just say, I will ask for any interested people. For a long time, we have had a mayor's committee for people with disabilities, and it kind of disbanded just organically a while ago, in part because of bylaws. So I have revised the bylaws, and I do have some people who were on that committee who are still interested in being on it, but I'm asking if anyone else in the community has interest in serving on the mayor's committee for people with disabilities. And then please contact me. One of the main reasons why I'm trying hard to resurrect it now is because I believe that this committee could offer us some insight on sidewalks. And that is one of the things that I think that the committee could help us out on, because we need help. I'll just put it that way. There's other things that they do as well. I've revised the bylaws so that they don't have to meet as often, could be just a couple times a year. But I do believe that they could help us understand this issue from an ADA perspective better. So if you are interested, please contact me. Any other announcements? Councilman Shoddy?
So, as Councilman Mormon would say, shout out, I'm gonna do we should have like an agenda item called a shout out item kind of a thing, right? So the Watertown Fire Rescue and the Watertown Police Department. So today, there was an incident at Access Ministry where a car drove into our building, as some of you know already, but it was interesting having a front row seat on seeing, well, first, the first responder was the police department. They beat the fire department, so just, there you go. but then as the fire department was there, they rolled up their sleeves, and I was surprised at how much a fire department, I mean, of course you think the basic, the important stuff of course, saving lives, and we don't even know what they all have to work through. But the hats they got to wear, the education they have to go through, because they were actually putting on their engineer construction hat. They had to sit there and look at the building and determine if it was structurally sound or not, because the vehicle had drove in through the doorway and brick wall area. And so just the way that they were able to, they had to look at it, engineer it, and see how to frame it and make sure it's secure before the contractor got there. I was like, wow, these guys, they got to know a whole lot. There's a whole lot of education they must have to learn. And so you had mentioned, I believe, Chief Rowland, that they put in how many hours? 200 hours individually a year in education. And part of it must be how to structurally secure a building. And so it just, anyway, shout out to our, well, both services there, but in this case, the fire rescue with their engineering and construction We didn't need to get the building official there to make sure it was done right. They were doing it well, so. Anyway, thanks for your service.
Councilman Shetty, have you ever considered moving your building?
I am gonna contact the street department and see, I got a sign I wanna have make and put, no outlet, and put it right there.
No through street.
No through street right there on that. That's twice in 2 years.
Councilman Mormon.
I just want to wish Watertown Arrows boys basketball team good luck this weekend out at the state tournament in Rapid City, and prayers for a lot of people that'll be traveling across the state this week.
Councilman Allen.
Couple of things. First, a shout out to the city staff for the press briefing that we had recently to hear from both the police department and the fire department about their annual public safety and law enforcement report. I liked the press briefing. I thought it was well done. The press was there and had an opportunity to ask questions, and I support that activity. I also want to shout out to both of those departments for the quality of their work. We have, if you look at the overall report, crime is down. We're doing an excellent job on lots of levels, and I think you deserve kudos for that. But I do want to push back a little bit on a couple of things, and just a couple of the statistics that were offered up to us. These are calls for service. There were 273 family disturbances, 118 domestic assaults, 168 assaults that were non-domestic, 103 sexual contact, rape, or indecent exposure calls for service. We also saw 60 juvenile arrests for simple assault and 4 juvenile arrests for rape. That's a 400% increase on that rape from 0 to 4. And so I think we spent a little bit of time at that briefing talking about assaults. And you got questions from Mayor Holeen about the difference between a simple assault and an aggravated assault. And I think Chief Toomey characterized some of the increase as actually a positive thing because it meant that more people were reporting it, and thus it meant that they trusted police more than perhaps they had in the past. And I think that may be true, but it also means that we are seeing this increase. And I think just to differentiate between simple assault, a slap, a punch, aggravated assault, which is a visible, broken bones, those kinds of things. I think you rhetorically asked a question about how many DUIs should we have for people that were underage? And we all went 0 because we shouldn't see any of those. And I would argue the same thing about assaults. Simple, aggravated, sexual, we really should be seeing 0 reports, but of course we're not. We live in a real world. And I grew up in this community, and as I grew up, like most boys, I got into some fights, and most of them were the shoving and pushing and wrestling and those kinds of fights, but I was also the victim of an aggravated assault at one point, where I was punched and kicked and bloodied and so forth. And in those days, we never reported it. You were expected to deal with it yourself. And so I, of course, didn't report it and tried to deal with it myself. I'd like to think that that's changed. I know we have alternative programs at the Boys and Girls Club for these underage, these juveniles that are engaged in these assaults. I applaud that. I think the Boys and Girls Club is doing a great job of trying to provide these kids with a different means of solving problems other than resorting to violence. I think it's a real problem. And I would also say that, even though, of course, some of these are boy-on-boy kinds of things, I think that a lot of assaults in this community, the victims are women. And I think that's a problem for us. And I think that we in leadership positions in the community have a great deal of power in terms of where we allocate resources and where we put our efforts to reduce crime. And I think that we focus on drugs, we focus on DUIs, and I know Chief Toomey would say we focus on everything. But I think we need to ramp up what we're doing in terms of assaults, especially domestic assaults that involve women. We know that we have a beacon center here in town. There's a reason we do, and they're struggling to replace some funding that they've recently lost. I think it's a real important service. I just think it points to a real need. And so I would argue that I would like to see us allocate more resources to trying to do something to correct this problem, because I think it's getting worse. And I know that, you know, where we put our resources has an impact, and I know that you would agree with me that it's, you know, that you share the concern, but I just want to do, in addition to congratulating you, urge you to redouble our efforts in this area. And I think the other thing that this points out is that as I look around at the leadership in the community and I look around at this city council, I don't see very many women. I just don't see very many women. And I think that's not the problem of the departments, but it tells me that we need to probably do a better job. We know that, you know, more than half of our community are women, and we know they're doctors and attorneys, and they play all kinds of roles in our community. I'd like to see us do more things to support women in leadership roles in the community, because I think it would help us perhaps reallocate resources in a different way. So congratulations. Just personally, I hope we can do more to reduce assaults in the community, and particularly in our school system, where I'm really concerned that, boy, we've got a lot of kids solving problems with violence, and I think that's a mistake, and we need to nip that in the bud. Thank you very much.
Councilman Hoyer? I thought you.
Get on, there we go. I just wanted to revisit the concerns that came up at the start of our meeting. Maybe someone else was going to bring it back up, but just if that's something we do want to bring up in discussion, or if we want to handle it privately, or however we want to go about it. But
Now would be the time.
okay, I do think it's a genuine concern. I've heard it from a lot of.
And you're talking about the road closure?
Yes,
on
yes, sir.
second. Just to clarify that everyone's on the same page.
Yep. Just heard a lot of, you know, just because I'm present in the downtown, so I get talked to a lot about it. Genuine concern from a lot of people. I don't know what our timeline looks like. Have we gotten an update for when they're looking at getting going? Because it sounds like in the appeal that was kind of given to us that they're fine with it if they're doing stuff, but I can see the concern when we haven't seen any movement here for about a month.
I'll give a couple of updates. And first of all, those of us in City Hall live with it every day. We know the concerns. Almost a direct quote is the same update that I've received for the last month, which is tomorrow or within a few days, we will be ready. We actually saw the civil plans this afternoon, so I am confident that things are finally moving forward. There are some logistical issues with opening up the street right now. That's not easy to do in the short term, and therefore we've been listening to the developer tell us what their plans are in terms of getting started. I can tell you that they are ready to start. Meeting the 1 week requirement will either happen, or we will open up the road through the city's effort long before a week, because we can't deal with it any longer either. One of the complicating factors is there is a trench dug through almost both lanes of the road, because the water main is actually located on the east side. And so there hasn't been a provision made yet for how that's temporarily paved. So if we were to just go in there today and open up the road, there'd be a really bad spot in it. And so that's been one of the hesitancies in wanting to open it up for just a short period of time. We do intend that when it is under construction, that we will have that addressed and we will be able to open it up for short periods of time on a more frequent basis, but we're just not at that point yet. So simple answer is it will be open within a week, or there will be active construction activity at the site.
Perfect, thank you.
And I would also like to add that City Manager Stager and myself talked to the developers. Everyone is frustrated and would like it to move forward. I know that's part of that, but they did also make it clear that there has been work that is being done with the soil and the foundation that is just not as obvious to people, that doesn't involve, well, demolition. So it might not be obvious to people that work is going on, but work is going on there that they have to do before they move forward. So that has been part of it as well. Councilman Jurgens?
So hearing them out, their one request was, due to logistics, running in and out, congestion, will we be able to open up one lane? And I hear now, that's the first I've heard of the digging that has been done in there because of the east side water lane, or water. But when they're actually doing the work, do they need the whole street shut down?
To the extent possible, we intend to keep one lane open in each direction. There may be times when that's not safe, and I think everybody acknowledges there will be times it has to be completely shut down. I would be hesitant to open up just one lane and creating an inadvertent one-way. I think that's more hazardous than having it closed.
Any further questions, comments, shout-outs, topics? City Manager, anything to report?
I had some stuff a long time ago. I'll just go with this. I think we need a work session on streets, and we were planning that even before tonight. So I had mentioned during the discussion on sidewalks that this street project actually started about 5 years ago. City Engineer Peterson and I have actually gone through a list of street projects for the next 3 years that we would like some input on. And going through that in a work session, I think gives all of you an opportunity to ask some of the design-related questions that it's way too late to ask on the project in front of us. So do look for a work session in the coming month. Second thing I'd bring up, we continue to look for volunteers to put on our list for boards and commissions. It's real simple to sign up on our website, just clicking on the Apply to Serve link. And then finally, the Bramble Park Zoo is beginning a master planning process. And on Thursday, March 26th at 5:30 p.m. at the zoo, there will be a listening session where interested community members can come and give some input into the future of the Bramble Park Zoo. That's all I have.
You said March 26th at 5:30?
March 26th, 5:30 p.m. in the Discovery Classroom.
Thank you. We have no reason to go into executive session, so I will take a motion to adjourn. Motion made by Councilman Allen.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Hoyer. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Good night and God bless you, Watertown.